Thrift shopping is having a real moment, and I can completely understand why. More and more of us are deciding to give pre-loved clothes a second chance at life. Not only do we save loads of money, but we're also saving the planet, and that feels great. But thrifting really isn't for the faint-hearted, and there are some pitfalls that you can easily fall into that leave you feeling disillusioned and overwhelmed, and basically you just give up. So if you'd like to know how to avoid all of that and thrift like a pro, then just keep watching. Hi, I'm Leonie and welcome back to my channel. I've been thrifting up a storm recently and having so much fun with it, so I thought now is a perfect time to share some of my secrets to really enjoying thrift shopping. Now, I know if you've been thrifting before, you'll know that it's actually not sometimes as easy as it may sound, but there are a few things that I do that make it far less painful and far less overwhelming, and today's the day I'm sharing them with you. In honor of creating a thrifting video, I've decided to wear two of my recent thrift pieces, and this tank I bought just the other day. It's brand new. It's from a really well-known label here in New Zealand called Max, and it was $5. The original price, it actually still had its tags on it, was $99. So I'm super excited about this one. And the shirt is a Calvin Klein shirt that I bought and recently did a little thrift flip and kind of gave it a little bit of a fashion edge. I'll link that video so you can check that out after you've watched this one. But these are my top tips to taking the hard work out of thrift shopping. My first tip is one that I follow religiously when it comes to thrift shopping. And instead of setting aside a whole day to go and try and hit the thrift stores, I tend to do little and often as opposed to a big mission. The thing with thrifting is you can go one day and there can be a load of great stuff, but you can go the very next day and there is really nothing much on offer that appeals. So if you've decided that you're putting aside a whole day and that's the day where nothing is showing up, then it's super easy just to get completely disillusioned and overwhelmed and just decide that thrifting's not for you. But what I tend to do, and it works really well, is just pop in really quickly, and if I'm driving past a thrift store that I know and I love, or if I just see one and think I'll pop in there and have a little look at it, that's generally when I tend to have the best experience. I'm not wasting a whole lot of time, I'm not investing a whole lot into that experience, and generally that works better. Also, the way thrift shops work is that they're always updating and bringing in new merchandise. It really is the luck of the draw, and timing is everything. So if you pop in little and often, your chances of finding something really good are much higher. It's also really important to remember that not all thrift shops are created equal. Now, I like to categorize thrift shops as A, B, or C list shops. The A list is really the consignment and recycle boutiques. So they're more of secondhand stores where people are going to sell their pre-loved, usually label brands as well. So in my mind, they're the sort of the creme de la creme of thrift shops. But in saying that, you'll also pay top dollar at those stores as well. The B-list thrift stores are the ones that everything seems to be merchandised well. There's order, there's organization, things are laid out in categories, they're often color-coded, they're grouped in prices, and usually they don't smell. So there's a real effort that's put into these stores where the pieces are looked after and everything is well merchandised and well weeded through before it even makes it into the store. And then the C list is the big Save Mart type stores where they are huge and it's an absolute sea of stuff and it's a mess. And these stores tend to take a little bit longer to get your head around, and you do need to invest a little bit more time finding the gems. So you almost need to decide what sort of thrifter you are. If you're an A, B, or C list, or if you're quite happy to try them all out. It depends on my mood, but mostly I'm a kind of a B list thrift shopper, and I'll go for stores that are well merchandised merchandised, but there is a little bit of everything for everyone. And it is worth remembering that there are different thrift stores, because if you start out thrifting and you just find yourself in a C-list thrift store, that's when overwhelm hits and it does get really hard. So I recommend, if you're new to thrifting, try and find yourself a B-list store, one that's just a little bit more organized and there's a little bit more love and planning put into the store. Now, I know I keep talking about feeling overwhelmed by thrifting, but it can actually be a really overwhelming process. And one thing that I do sometimes to really prevent that happening is I put together a little bit of a list before I actually head out shopping. So I might go through my Pinterest boards, grab a couple of photos, screenshot them, take them with me. So I go with a little bit of a plan of attack. I'm not just going in blindly looking for who knows what. I go in with a little bit of a plan as to what pieces I would like to find to perhaps fill some gaps in my wardrobe. Another trick is to know when to call it off. Know when to, as I say, chop it and call it a day. I think sometimes if you go into a thrift store and you try too hard, what you tend to do is you then talk yourself into pieces, and that's not what you want to happen. You don't want to be buying something cheap and then never wearing it, because at the end of the day, the cost per wear on that is not great. That's what we want to avoid. So if you're struggling, you're not finding anything, call it a day. Just know when to chop it and take it on another day, go another day. If you're not feeling it, don't try and, as I say, flog a dead horse. Just know when enough's enough. It's also really helpful to dress for the occasion, and I'm sure you've heard other people talking about this as well. But you do need to be wearing comfy clothes. I often wear activewear when I'm out thrifting, because it does mean that I can quickly whip something on. I don't need to go into the change room. I can put a jacket or a shirt over what I'm currently wearing, and I get a really good idea of whether something is going to fit or not. And especially with skirts as well, you can easily try on skirts over activewear. I also tend to wear a crossbody bag because I find that super helpful, because I can then be hands-free to trawl through racks and also to be holding clothes. If you're thrifting somewhere that's really busy, generally you're queuing up for a changing room, so I tend to not want to do this. So it's really helpful to wear something that you can actually try on pieces over the top and get a really good idea. Now, this next step is probably one that's more suited to the seasoned thrifters, but I call this one mastering the art of the scan. Now, what I mean by this is when you walk into a thrift store and it's absolutely jam-packed with racks and racks of things, and it's huge, especially if it's a C-list thrift store and it's just massive. What you can't really do is go through every single piece at a time. It would just take you far too long and it would be tiring and boring. So what you do need to do is master the art of being able to scan really quickly and hone your eye into focusing in on something that may have some potential. Now, this does take a little bit of practice, and it's definitely not a foolproof skill, but it is a way that you can kind of get around a large store and try and take in a lot for not a lot of time. So essentially, it's about honing your skills, scanning without having to go through every single item on every single hanger. It does take effort, but it is worth it. I tend to find that I can kind of go in and scan and get the lie of the land and know exactly where to head to first. And I'm honing that skill, and it's getting better and better. Another top tip is to always check the racks that are right near the changing rooms. Now, every thrift store is going to be different, but I tend to find that the racks that are outside the changing rooms are full of absolute gems. And this is usually because other people have invested their time in finding them. They've gone to the changing room to try them on, and for whatever reason they don't suit or they don't fit well. But generally these pieces are gold. So don't overlook the items that have been rejected when other people have tried them on. You will find gems. The other thing to keep in mind is choosing the neighborhood where you decide to thrift. You may not live in that neighborhood, but you might prefer to go to an upscale neighborhood because generally the merchandise that goes into those thrift stores comes from the local area. So if you're in a really upscale, affluent area, well then chances are those thrift stores are going to reflect that. So you'll end up with pieces that are much better than you would find in other areas. So that's sometimes worth thinking about too. Instead of necessarily going to your local thrift store, you may want to travel a little further afield and go to a neighborhood that is perhaps a little bit of a wealthier neighborhood, and you might actually just find some extra cool pieces there that you wouldn't perhaps find at your local. Oh, and please let me know in the comments below what your all-time favourite thrift find has been. I would love to hear what it was and what you paid for it. And if you're willing to share your best ever or your favourite thrift store, it would be great to drop that down there as well. I'd love to go online and search some of these thrift stores out. And sharing is caring after all, so it'd be nice to kind of share the love down there. Oh, and bonus tip, I always try and pop into a couple of thrift stores when I'm traveling. Obviously, I haven't been doing that much lately, but I do plan to spend a little bit of time traveling around New Zealand in the next few months. I've got a few tiny trips planned, and I will be popping into some local thrift stores along the way. I do think that it's always interesting and fascinating to thrift in a different place, in a different neighborhood, a different town, and it is amazing what you can find when you're away from home. So think about it. Next time you're traveling anywhere, give some of the local thrift stores a little bit of a go-to. Anyway, that's it from me today. I hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, I'd love you to give it a big thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye for now.